Starlink gets a boost in speed? Is AI turning into a shopping channel? Jensen Huang won't give up on China. Google takes another run at the smart home. And what AI research can teach us about creativity? Welcome to #Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. Starlink dishes are getting a power-up, and without requiring updates to existing hardware. The FCC has approved SpaceX to raise the transmit power on its latest terminals, meaning stronger signals without customers necessarily needing to buy new gear. For users, this should mean more stable connections, fewer slowdowns in bad weather or on the move, but it might also lead to a bump in download and upload speeds. Current performance ranges from about 45 to 200 megabits per second, with median downloads about 100 megabits per second, but most of us, if you're users of Starlink, know it varies. Now, no one's saying yet how much this would be increased, but at a minimum, they're saying it should make speeds more consistent. Looking ahead, there's speculation this could be a step towards a much faster, perhaps even a gigabit class service, something Musk and SpaceX have teased about for the future. And with Amazon's Project Kuiper set to enter the market in 2026 and potentially other competitors on the horizon, SpaceX has an incentive to keep Starlink in the lead for speed. OpenAI has just launched an instant checkout inside ChatGPT. It struck a deal with Etsy, the online marketplace that sells crafts and similar items through a web of individual sellers. It also expects to add Shopify, the Canadian e-commerce enabler with over 5 million merchants. You can find items and pay directly in the app with Apple Pay, Google Pay, Stripe, or even a credit card. And at launch, you can only buy single items, but your shopping cart is now built right into your chatbot. To do this, OpenAI is open sourcing what it calls the Agentic Commerce Protocol, a framework it hopes other merchants and maybe even rivals will adopt. Not surprisingly, Google is testing their own AI-driven shopping agents. Both companies are under pressure to find new revenue streams, but Google is particularly under the gun on this. Their AI summaries on web pages are incredibly popular, but they've drastically reduced the number of people who go from their search page to a website. The good news is, Google's demonstrated that they can keep them on Google's pages for longer. The bad news is that Google makes its money from people clicking on paid ads on those search pages. If you cut back on site visits, you cut the clicks that drive the ad dollars. So solving this problem and how to get revenue from AI summaries is essential for Google to maintain its revenue and market leadership. And it's not as easy as it sounds. It's one thing to run an ad on a page. It's quite another thing to use supposedly objective information to direct you to a product. So solving this problem is a huge issue for Google. But OpenAI has huge expenses and a growing audience of unpaid users that's growing into the hundreds of millions. They're also keenly trying to figure this out as well. And while Google does have expenses to run its search engines and deliver web pages, it pales in comparison with the massive computing expenses that AI requires. So sooner or later, both of these companies have to monetize this in a big way. With OpenAI, if you're looking at it anyway, why not buy it? Good idea. There have also been persistent rumors that they may eventually weave advertising into ChatGPT. But all of this brings up a big concern: privacy and manipulation. These AI systems already know a lot about you, your interests, your timing, even your moods. And that's powerful data to put behind a sales pitch. We've already seen how social media algorithms were optimized to keep us engaged, sometimes in ways that weren't exactly that healthy. Imagine the same techniques turned loose to nudge us into buying. So yes, AI can make online shopping faster, possibly more convenient. But it also raises hard questions about who controls the storefront of the future and how much they'll know and use about us when we walk in. Equally, despite these issues and concerns, the potential revenue opportunity is so great, it's impossible to ignore. Watch this space. Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang is not giving up on the Chinese market, even though he says that China is only nanoseconds behind the US in chip making. And you have to admire his determination. Huang worked for months to convince the US to allow him to sell stripped-down chips to the Chinese market. Finally, he got President Trump to reverse the US embargo and let him sell Nvidia chips to China, only to find out that in the meantime, China had developed their own chips and that the Chinese government had ordered its big hosting companies, from Baidu to ByteDance, to use Chinese chips wherever possible. Which is a killer. China was once a $5 billion business for Nvidia, where it held more than 95% of the AI chip market. U.S. export rules cut that off, banning sales of their powerful A100 and H100 chips, and eventually even taking the H20, the simplified chip, off the market. Still, Huang doesn't give up. He's pushing ahead, and Nvidia has designed these lower-spec models like H20 to comply with the U.S. rules, hoping to keep a foothold in China and stay part of the ecosystem there. They'll never get back the dominance they once had, but even a slice of that Chinese market apparently is worth fighting for. And no matter how this turns out, you have to give Huang points for sheer determination. Google Home is getting another reboot with the integration of artificial intelligence into the Google Assistant. Starting October 1st, Gemini will officially replace the old Google Assistant on home devices. Google says it will be faster, smarter, and more reliable. There's even a redesigned Google Home app with simpler navigation and a new Ask Home feature, which lets you create natural language automations without digging through menus. And after 5 years of mostly silence on hardware, Google is apparently preparing a Gemini-powered smart speaker with 360-degree audio. This all comes at a crucial moment. Google's smart home push has stumbled before. First with Google Home, and then with the Nest rebrand. And in the process, Google actually appeared to be walking away from the Nest products, angering those who had outfitted their homes, sometimes at great expense. Those stumbles created a space for Amazon's Alexa, and Amazon is also upgrading Alexa with AI. So the question will be, how much can AI bring to a renewed competition in a space with Amazon's Alexa still dominating? If Gemini delivers, it could breathe life back into Google's ecosystem. The more we look at artificial intelligence, or as our Project Synapse guru Marcel Gagné prefers to call it, synthetic intelligence, the more it seems we learn about ourselves. While some dismiss generative AI as a prediction machine, Ray Kurzweil's book, A New Mind, points out that human brains are also prediction machines, although they have some different qualities, like emotions and creativity. Now, researchers are beginning to use AI not just as a tool to generate art, but to study how creativity itself might work. A new study led by scientists at the University of California, Berkeley, and Princeton examined diffusion models, the algorithms behind tools like DALL-E and Stable Diffusion, to understand why they sometimes produce images that feel original. Unlike our more common large language models that work by predicting the next word or token, images are created from what's called diffusion models. These work by starting with random noise and gradually removing that noise to form an image, rebuilding patterns learned from their training data. It's an incredible task. So in the process, they use two shortcuts. The first is called locality. The model looks only at small patches of pixels at a time. The second is called translational equivariance. If you shift an input image by even just a pixel or two, the system shifts the output in exactly the same way to keep the structure, if not intact, at least coherent. So when even the tiniest variation slips in, a pixel out of place, a small denoising error. Those rules force the model to adapt. So instead of copying the data exactly, it generates something new. And the result can look like creativity, though it might simply be a side effect of how the math works. And that's raised the question, is what we call creativity actually a byproduct of flaws or shortcuts in a system? And what else can we learn about ourselves as we explore how this new kind of intelligence is developed? And that's our show. I have to say I was blown away by the support for the new Alyssa audiobook. I hope you're all enjoying it. And if you are, please take a minute to go back and give it a review on Audible or Apple or wherever you get it. These reviews have an incredible impact on getting the book in front of others. And I probably pointed out to you, I don't really care about the money. I just want my work of art to get and reach as many people as possible. And if you were away last week, please check out the book in the new audio version. Just search for Alyssa, E-L-I-S-A, and Jim Love. On the smart speaker front, I hope we've got things under control. I keep my fingers crossed. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a terrific Tuesday.